Hello and welcome. I am Tawanda Clark Edgar, the Chief Program Officer for Gwen's Girls, and I'm sitting here today with Maria Searcy, otherwise known as our Education Consultant and Communication and Education Guru here at Gwen's Girls. If you missed our parent meeting, no worry. You can make the next one next month, and be sure to check out our Facebook page to find out when that upcoming information will be. We're sitting here today and we're going to cover some of the information that you might have missed on that meeting. One of the things that I thought was really great about that particular meeting, Maria, is that you were able to answer a lot of the questions that the families on the line had. You were able to really steer them in the right direction. But the thing that stood out for me the most is the official organizational chart that you showed us during that meeting on the school board. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, because Tawanda, like you were surprised to see that because that's something that you've never seen before, right? So as a member of the Equity Advisory Panel for Pittsburgh Public Schools, I had asked for that updated chart. So again, remember that chart was updated October 2019, but what it was an official chart that showed the organization, the hierarchy of the Pittsburgh Public School System. Now remember, we were only talking about Pittsburgh Public Schools. But all school systems have a system of hierarchy, and that one showed Pittsburgh Public. So do you remember the block that was at the very top?
I absolutely do. And you one of the things that stood out for me, Maria, is that I was surprised to see that the parents, the community, and the students were at the top of that chart.
At the tip
so talk
top.
a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was surprising too, and that was surprising to me when I first saw it too. But so that top block had students, families, and the community at the top. Then the school board directors, the 9 directors, and then the superintendent, and then his direct reports. And what is so important about us knowing that is how we can begin to understand how important that those students, families, and the community are in a school system, and why the partnerships and a space for us at the table becomes critical to how decisions and policies and procedures are come about that benefit not only students and families, but also the community at large.
When I hear you say that, it really makes me think of how important it is to have that family student voice, that community voice at the table. And so it brings me to this month's election that's coming up May 18th, and how that's so important, and how it's so important for our families to get involved and to get out and vote for this election. You want to talk a little bit about why that organizational chart as it relates to this election voting is so important?
Absolutely. So that second block, with the school board directors in it, there's 9 school board directors. And so it is critical that parents begin to understand school governance and really what is their role and what are the school board directors' role, and why electing and picking the right candidate becomes critical to student engagement, student achievement, family engagement, and community engagement. So, for example, a lot of parents will think that they're voting for like the 5 candidates that are up for election now.
Right.
It was like not. You have to find out what candidate is in your district, or even if it's your district that's up for re-election. This local election is District 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9, the odd districts. Now, school board directors direct the traffic in the school system. So they establish policies and procedures. So we have to get the right candidates in those slots.
So give us an example of some of the policies and procedures that may be in place right now that maybe parents weren't even aware of, that their vote would have made a difference in the way that particular policy or procedure came into fruition.
Absolutely. So I explained during the workshop that family involvement, family engagement is law. It's written into the federal law, and which is governed by each state. So Pennsylvania has, what's called its consolidated state plan. Or it's state law that family involvement and family engagement happens in the school system. So it's important that these policies, family engagement policies, the equity policy, the community schools policies, which the school directors govern and vote on and establish, that these policies just don't sit sit idle, that they're actually absolutely understood and executed, so they benefit the families and students and community.
Absolutely.
And they eventually affect our city. So it's important that we get candidates in those slots that interact with students, interact with families and communities, so that we can work together to make the change and establish policies that really benefit everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Maria. So let's talk a little bit about this upcoming election. It's a really important election, and although we don't endorse any candidate here at Gwen's Girls, can you just mention some of the candidates and some of the things that people need to know in reference to how they might find research, find information out about the candidates, so that you can be informed when you actually do cast your vote?
Sure. So a colleague of mine, I can hear her voice on the Equity Advisory Panel. I'm just going to say Salita Hickman. She always says to me, all politics are local, and that resonates with me. And so this local election, not only the school board election, but the mayoral race and the judicial race. But let's focus on the school board. So I am a part of an organization called the Black Women for a Better Education, and we have a slate that we are supporting. And like you said, you're not, Gwen's Girls is not supporting any particular candidate, but it's important that parents, one thing I can say about Black Women for a Better Education is that we have spent some time vetting our candidates, asking them questions. For example, like, why should we vote for you? We just don't want to hear the issues the issues that you have researched, but why is it important? We have people on that on our slate that we're supporting that have been school teachers, that are incumbents, like Salah Uddin in District 3, Tracy Reed in District 5, Jean Walker, who worked for years for the Pittsburgh Promise and Workforce Development. We have Grace Higginbotham in District 1 and Camille Scatlin in District 7. So, it's important that parents say, to look at these forums that are coming up, these public forums, and ask really critical questions. Let's talk about college and career readiness and equity and, the magnet school process and why, some schools are, they look like they're being resegregated and are just, 20% white and 80% black. Let's see how you're going to change that and make equity happen for all students.
And when I hear you say that, it makes me think about the curriculum. Are our curriculums embracing of all communities?
Right.
How do decisions get made about what curriculum is going to be used? And so this is an opportunity for parents to get involved in that decision making process by actually being out on May 18th and casting their votes.
Right. And I know you were curious. You had asked a question because when I started, we were not only talking about parent-family engagement, but community engagement. And so I was emphasizing in that workshop the importance of both. Because, for example, I talked about as a parent who was involved in a system when my kids were in schools. They've since graduated. So I am a community activist now. I don't have kids in a school system. So I'm here on this platform working with parents in my community, people in the city, candidates, school board candidates, to raise awareness, community awareness. And that's why community engagement is as important as parent engagement. It goes hand in hand.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. So can you give us some examples of how community engagement has actually supported some of the work in the schools and for our children?
Absolutely. So, for example, as a parent, I can go in and maybe, I've served as a tutor or a volunteer just by, observing the classroom and working hand in hand with a teacher. But there's something called the Parent School Community Council. And that is a platform for just exactly what the acronym means, Parents and School Community Council. And so together, let's say, for example, that parents who don't have a lot of time, cannot make meetings. So it's important that the community comes to that table and we find spaces, churches, libraries, just informal spaces to just talk about what is happening in that school and to convey that information and have conversations so that parents are well informed, so that awareness is raised, even with students. We have to get that feedback from students who are in the classrooms. And so we have to do what you are doing here, what Gwen's Girls has done with me, giving me a platform, giving me a space to talk about the important issues, not just not just because you're a parent involved, but also understanding the comprehensiveness about community engagement and how families affect communities and communities affect cities.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. Maria, it is always a pleasure to have you. I am so happy that you're going to be joining us once a month for our citywide parent meeting that you're all invited to, and you can find information and details of that on our Facebook page. But also you can check her out for Parenthetically Speaking. That will come out the first Friday of every month. So we look forward to having you tune in to see us at that as well. My name is Tawanda Clark Edgar, and I'm sitting here with the education consultant and education guru, Maria Searcy. Thank you again for tuning in to Parenthetically Speaking.
Tawanda, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.